Hi everyone, thank you very much for stopping by and returning to the old world. Today we are taking a look back at some of the older articles released by Warhammer Community and piecing together just how much the project for Warhammer the Old World has changed over the years. Now we know that the initial information that a game was coming was pre-pandemic, and that it's obvious that the pandemic has had an impact on Games Workshop's ability to create Warhammer the Old World. But there's also evidence of other issues that have arisen as well, and that the project has been forced to change direction, possibly on multiple occasions. To the extent I would say it does call into doubt some of the stuff we actually think we know around what the setting is going to be focused on. Well, what do I mean by this? Well, let's look back to February of 2022, nearly 2 years ago, when Games Workshop put out an article about all the work they've been doing to flesh out the northern territories of Grand Cathay, and that this was being done to support Creative Assembly's creation of Warhammer 3 in the Total War franchise. Now, that article expressly states that the information being produced for Grand Cathay would be playable in both settings, meaning both the computer game and the tabletop. It goes on to expressly state more information will be revealed in future Warhammer Community articles. But none of that came true. And if we look back a few months prior to that, there was an article where it was all about the Border Princes. What have we heard about the Border Princes since then? Absolutely diddly squat. We have heard some information about the Empire and the War of the Three Emperors, and how the Empire might be divided up into different sub-factions for the different claimants to the Imperial throne. But time's moved on from there since as well, and we've seen only really a focus of late on Bretonnia. So does this mean that actually the stuff we've been told about the Empire isn't true either, because Games Workshop have clearly changed direction on multiple occasions already? I think with the release of Warhammer Old World, there was a widespread belief that the intention was to tie it into release with Total War 3. Obviously, that wasn't achieved for whatever reason. And there was another opportunity to tie in with Warhammer 3 when the Immortal Empires DLC dropped, which allowed players to wage war across the entirety of the Warhammer world. But that was missed too. We've not got a game yet. The game isn't coming until 2024. And as much as we can be excited about that, I've mentioned in previous videos, I think those tie-ins with the big game release, the big DLC release of Warhammer Total War, is a massive missed opportunity. Those computer games have done really, really well, generated millions of sales. So it would have been perfect timing to try and entice some of those people playing in the virtual world into the tabletop environment and sell them some miniatures. But Games Workshop have missed that opportunity. The staff working on this also seem to have previously had a much broader concept of what they wanted to achieve with the old world, if we're talking about Cathay, the Border Princes, etc. Kislev as well, of course, getting articles in those early days, but then very much radio silence on them too. Now, I fully get why Games Workshop would want to initially go with a limited release for Warhammer Old World. Yes, rules for all the 8th edition factions, but only a smaller number of core factions getting real attention, and then in a staggered manner. It allows for the better managing of resources, particularly as this is not a mainline game. It is a specialist game. So I sincerely doubt Games Workshop would want it competing with the resources being thrown at their main games, particularly, well, Warhammer 40,000 and Age of Sigmar, which are going to be their main sellers. But I can't also help but be a little bit disappointed. The old world stories are well told. We know from the lore broadly what's going on at the time that the game is being set. It's covered in army books, novels, etc. But other parts of the world, the border princes, Cathay, etc., haven't been fleshed out to that same extent. And it means whatever stories we tell on the battlefield, whatever campaigns we launch, we would be able to create something new without having the dramatic irony of we know how it's all going to pan out. Yes, we know how it's going to pan out across the world. Games Workshop have said the end times happened. Live with it. They're still happening. But we could at least have a lot more flexibility in the stories that we created. But for this focus very much on a small part of the old world. And I think this comes into a however moment. So we've been talking about how the project has shifted and changed direction over time, and that's clear from the nature of the articles that we've been provided with. But can we trust the articles that were actually more recent? So I mentioned the Empire article talking about the various factions and the claimants to the imperial throne. Is that still going to be the same? Or will they have moved on yet again? Is the timeline actually fixed? Or as we go through the various releases, are we going to see the narrative consistently moved on towards the Great War of Chaos, allowing demons to enter the game, allowing an explosion of magic, all sorts of different things going on? I don't think we really know. And as much as we've, as a community, been reading stuff into these articles, I think there's a lot of information out there which is now, quite frankly, redundant. It's obsolete. And aside from effectively what looks like wasted effort, at least for now, on the behalf of the staff producing the game, I think there's missed opportunities for us as players there as well, and that's what's disappointing. Now, don't get me wrong, from what we've seen in the more recent articles, the almanacs, I'm pretty excited about what I'm seeing for the rules of the game. And from what we can tell of the setting, that looks really interesting. But it just seems that the game could have been so much more, possibly even upon release. And that Games Workshop have been forced to really dial down on their offering. So, what do you think? Were there particular factions you were looking forward to based on the information we've been provided with, where it just seems that these shifts in directions, they've taken that away from us at least in the near time, if not for multiple years, depending on how successful the game is and how much support it gets going forward? Do you think, though, that the consolidation is actually a good thing and can only help improve the game and give it a greater shelf life through more effective support? Do let me know down in the comments below. All that remains for me to say is thank you very much for listening to my thoughts on this topic. If you've enjoyed it and my other thoughts around the old world game, then do consider subscribing along with watching the videos. It is the best support that you can give to the channel. Once again, thank you very much for listening. I am returned to the old world. Have a great day.